What if everything you were told about success was a lie? Have you ever wondered why you feel exhausted, even after a full day of achievements? Why do we push ourselves to the brink of burnout and call it ambition? What if success isn't found in endless motion but in the stillness between steps? Welcome to a different path. A path walked by Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and the Stoics. A path where rest is not weakness, but wisdom. Before we dive into this life-altering perspective, make sure you subscribe. This channel is dedicated to revealing timeless truths from philosophy, mindset, and self-mastery, the kind society often hides from you. Let's break the myth. Let's rediscover rest, not as escape, but as power. 1. The lie society told you. Productivity is not purpose. Modern culture worships busyness. You are congratulated for being the first one in the office and the last one to leave. Your social value seems to rise with every hour of sleep you sacrifice. Every vacation day you ignore, every extra task you cram into your already full schedule. The grind is idolized, hustle is romanticized, and productivity is worn like a badge of honor, a symbol of commitment, discipline, and self-worth. But what if this narrative, that constant productivity equals purpose, is a carefully constructed lie? Productivity in itself is not harmful. It's a tool. But when it becomes a measure of identity or a source of validation, it becomes a trap. You might begin to feel guilty when resting, anxious when you're not ticking items off a list, or afraid of slowing down because you think you'll fall behind. This belief system is not just exhausting, it's dehumanizing. It teaches you that your worth lies in your output, not in your being. It reduces a soul to a machine. The result? Burnout, fractured attention, shallow relationships, and a life lived on autopilot. The Stoics, however, offered a radical alternative. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who wielded unmatched power, also wielded an uncommon clarity. In his private writings, he warned himself, and us, of the temptation to mistake activity for meaning. He understood that life is brief, that time is the most precious resource, and that doing more does not always mean living better. He wrote, "If you seek tranquility, do less." Then he added, "Or do what's essential, what the logos of a social being requires, and in the requisite way, which brings a double satisfaction, to do less, better." The key here is not laziness, it's intentionality. The Stoics believed that clarity was found not in motion, but in focus. That endless activity scattered the mind, while purposeful action sharpened it. It wasn't about how much you did. It was about what you did and why. So how do you break free from the productivity trap? First, by realizing that your purpose is not something you earn through constant motion. Your purpose is found in alignment with your values, with your inner nature, with the world around you. That kind of clarity comes from reflection, not reaction. Second, by reclaiming rest, not as a guilty pleasure, but as a sacred space. Rest, in the Stoic sense, isn't about zoning out, it's about zoning in. It's about coming back to yourself, auditing your actions, and asking the harder questions. Am I living according to what truly matters? Is this effort serving my values or just my ego? Busyness can be a form of avoidance, but clarity is born in stillness. It takes courage to step away from the noise. But it is only in silence that you can hear the truth of your own life. 2. Rhythms of the Stoic mind. There is a time for stillness. Nature flows in cycles. It always has. The sun rises, and then it sets. The ocean tide advances, and then it retreats. Even your heartbeat follows a rhythm. Contraction, pause, contraction. No part of nature is in constant motion, and yet it all functions with extraordinary harmony and power. Why then do we, supposedly the most intelligent species, try to live outside this rhythm? Modern life pushes us to go harder, faster, longer. But this constant push disrupts something deep within us. We become unbalanced, anxious, and reactive. And in doing so, we move further away from the natural order, the very order that the Stoics sought to align themselves with. To the Stoic mind, rhythm is not weakness. Rhythm is wisdom. It is the understanding that all things have their season: action, rest, growth, reflection. Seneca, one of Rome's greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. He recognized that the human mind, left unchecked, can create unnecessary suffering. But he also knew that you could only calm the mind by making time for stillness. Stillness is not the absence of effort. It's the presence of clarity. How often do you stop, truly stop, to think, to examine, to reconnect? In stillness, the fog of constant urgency begins to lift. You begin to see your thoughts as they are, not as they pretend to be. You untangle the emotional knots formed by days of rushing and reacting. You remember your principles. You regain your composure. The Stoics practiced daily reflection. Marcus Aurelius journaled. Epictetus advised asking yourself each evening what you did well, where you failed, and how you could improve. They did not see rest as indulgence. They saw it as maintenance of the soul. You too can live by rhythm. You can act with power when it's time to act, and step back with wisdom when it's time to reflect. When you embrace this rhythm, you'll notice something remarkable. Your strength doesn't diminish in stillness. It builds. Your decisions don't become weaker, they become sharper. You stop reacting and you start responding. Controlled rhythm, not frantic motion, is what creates excellence. Make time to pause. Not because you're tired, but because you're tuned in. That's where resilience grows. That's where true purpose begins to take shape. 3. Rest is not escapism. It is preparation for greatness. Too often, we mistake rest for weakness. We tell ourselves that taking a break is a luxury, a delay, or even a failure. That if we stop moving, someone will outpace us. That if we slow down, we'll never reach our goals. But this belief misunderstands the very nature of strength. Rest is not escapism. Rest is preparation. And to the Stoic, rest is strategy. Picture a seasoned warrior before battle. Do they run headlong into the fray without thinking, without breath, without pause? No. They prepare. They sharpen their weapons. They visualize the field. They gather their strength. Rest is not the enemy of action. It is its foundation. Stillness, to the Stoics, is where the battle is won before it begins. When you allow yourself to rest, not in distraction, but in intention, you reset your inner compass. Emotions that once clouded your vision begin to settle. Fear shrinks. Clarity expands. You begin to see what is essential and what is merely noise. Most people react. The Stoic responds, and that response, when rooted in rest, is powerful. Marcus Aurelius faced wars, plagues, betrayals, yet he never stopped making time to think, to reflect, to write. His calm wasn't accidental. It was built in the quiet spaces between his actions. Rest is not withdrawal, it's recalibration. It allows you to observe your own behavior, to question your automatic patterns, to ask, am I acting with intention or merely out of habit? That question alone can change the trajectory of your life. In a world that values speed, rest becomes a rebellion, a necessary one. You don't rest because you're lazy. You rest because you are preparing for something that matters. You are readying yourself to lead, to speak, to act with precision and purpose. The Stoics knew that a scattered mind cannot produce clear action, so they trained themselves, like athletes of the soul, to return to stillness often, not to escape life, but to live it better, and so must you. 4. You are not your work. Freedom through detachment. Why do we overwork? It's a question that often floats beneath the surface of our busy lives, unexamined and unanswered. In modern society, overwork is not only normalized, it's glorified. We wear burnout like a badge of honor. We boast about packed schedules and all-nighters as if they are evidence of value. But why? What lies beneath the obsession with being constantly productive? The answer is often rooted in fear. We fear what we might find in stillness, the awkward silence, the creeping doubts, the uncomfortable truth that without our work, we may not know who we are. Many of us have been conditioned to attach our identity to what we do rather than who we are. We become the job title, the profession, the output. It starts early. We ask children, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" instead of "Who do you want to become?" This subtle framing begins to teach us that our worth is tied to our productivity. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor and philosopher, warned us against this trap. Don't waste time worrying about what others think. Be concerned only with being true to yourself. That truth, our essence, does not reside in our job performance, our career achievements, or the number of hours we put in at the office. It lives in something much deeper, more resilient, and far less visible to the external world. Detachment is the key. But let's be clear, detachment does not mean apathy. It is not about giving up or withdrawing from meaningful pursuits. Rather, it means creating space between your sense of self and your professional role. You can care deeply about your work and strive for excellence without letting it define you. The distinction is subtle but vital. When we detach from the belief that our job is our identity, we begin to see work for what it truly is, a part of life, not the whole. So how do we cultivate this detachment? First, we must practice self-inquiry. Ask yourself, who am I when I'm not working? What values define me outside of my role? What brings me fulfillment that has nothing to do with productivity? These questions help us reconnect with ourselves on a human level, not just a professional one. Second, we must learn to embrace rest, not as a luxury, but as a necessity. The modern world equates rest with laziness, but this is a cultural distortion. In truth, rest is where clarity is born. When we detach from the constant churn of doing, we create space to reflect, to breathe, and to realign with what matters. The Stoics believed in aligning actions with nature and reason. Overwork runs counter to both. Nature operates in rhythms, the tides, the seasons, the cycles of growth and dormancy. Reason tells us that constant output without renewal leads to burnout, not brilliance. If we are to live in accordance with Stoic wisdom, we must learn to value stillness and detachment. When you reclaim time from overwork, you reclaim your mind. You begin to see more clearly, not just where your life is headed, but who you are becoming. Your values, relationships, health, and peace of mind stop taking a backseat to deadlines. You gain the power to say no, to set boundaries, and to prioritize your well-being. Detachment also gives you the strength to navigate change. When you no longer define yourself by your job, a layoff doesn't feel like personal annihilation. A career pivot becomes a new chapter, not an existential crisis. You can face transitions with grace because your foundation is internal, not external. Freedom comes not from escaping work, but from untangling your identity from it. Then, and only then, can you engage in work from a place of purpose rather than pressure. You are not your job title. You are not your inbox. You are not your productivity. You are a human being, worthy of rest, reflection, and life beyond the to-do list. So step back, breathe, detach, not from ambition, but from attachment. You may just find that the most meaningful work begins where identity ends. 5. Rest as resistance. Rise above the noise. In a world obsessed with hustle culture, choosing rest is an act of defiance. We live in an age where being busy is equated with being important, where rest is viewed with suspicion, and where exhaustion is mistaken for virtue. But the Stoics, and nature itself, teach us another way. To rest is to rebel against a system that tells you your worth is measured by your output. It is a powerful declaration. I am not a machine. I am a person. I deserve to pause. Rest is not weakness. It's not quitting. It is a radical reclamation of your humanity. We've been conditioned to believe that more is always better. More hours, more achievements, more grind. But at what cost? Chronic stress, fractured relationships, loss of clarity, the erosion of joy. The modern world has made it difficult to simply be present, to sit in silence, to do nothing. Yet that nothing is where everything begins. Rest is how you sharpen your inner life. In stillness, we gain the perspective we miss in motion. Our best ideas often come not when we're grinding, but when we're walking, daydreaming, or quietly reflecting. Clarity doesn't come through noise, it emerges in silence. And silence, in today's world, is a luxury we must consciously choose. Marcus Aurelius, a man with the weight of an empire on his shoulders, understood this intimately. He wrote, "Nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Despite his responsibilities, he made time to retreat inward, to reflect, to write, and to realign with his values. If the leader of Rome could make time to rest, so can we. Rest is not about idleness. It's about restoration. It's about gathering strength, tending to your inner garden, and preparing for what comes next. You don't build resilience by burning out. You build it by pausing and healing. In that pause, you remember who you are beyond the demands of society. You reconnect with your essence. When you rest, you say to the world, "I will not be reduced to my resume. I will not grind myself into dust for the illusion of success." You rise above the noise and the emails, the expectations, the pressure, and you listen to the still, quiet voice within. That voice knows your true path. But you can't hear it if you're always running. We must redefine success. Not as constant motion, but as conscious movement. Not as more, but as meaningful. And that meaning is born in the moments we pause. When you rest with intention, you are not retreating. You are regrouping. You are preparing to return with greater focus, creativity, and resolve. Rest is a strategy. It's a hidden weapon in a world that underestimates the power of stillness. The most legendary leaders, thinkers, and creators all knew the value of retreating. They weren't afraid to stop, because they knew that the next great move begins in silence. So take this as your reminder. Rest is not surrender. It's strategy. Rest is not weakness. It's your hidden weapon. Rest is not quitting. It's how you rise stronger. In choosing to rest, you are not falling behind. You are rising above. And this is the Stoic path. Calm in the chaos, clarity in the noise, strength in the stillness. Subscribe if you're ready to reclaim your time, your mind, and your power. Because legends are not made by endless motion. They are made by knowing when to stop and truly begin.